Happy Thanksgiving and welcome to the Strap and Link podcast. Today we're talking Bell & Ross and do all their watches really look the same? We'll discuss this in addition to their movements, price point, and how they came to design these unique timepieces. We're also looking back at some of our favorite moments and episodes from earlier this year. We hope that you all have a great holiday season and we hope that you enjoy the show. Welcome to the Strap and Link podcast, where we cover brands from their inception to their latest release. It's the Montress Tudor. Like I said, better movement, spring drive potentially, Rolex Oyster Perpetual.
There's Super Ocean here. Now you see this kind of renaissance of Tudor. Finally, in 2016, they achieved the spring drive with an 8-day power. The podcast for watch lovers by watch lovers. New episodes every first and third Monday of the month.
Welcome back in to the Strap and Link podcast. It's Brett and David again.
Hey, it's officially holiday season. We are in full swing. Thanksgiving and Christmas coming up right around the corner. So we're getting excited over here.
It's the holiday season. Doobie-doobie-doo.
Yes,
and
the lights are on the houses. And it is, for me, it is Christmas season because Thanksgiving is just a dinner. And, other than that, it's Christmas time. That's my favorite time of the year.
Yes, mine too. It's flown by, dude.
Oh, yeah, this year has flown by. Yep. When you're busy working full-time job and talking about watches multiple times a month, it seems to happen that way.
It does. We've stressed ourselves thin, man.
No, yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah. In the spirit of Thanksgiving, we're also at 20 episodes, so that's pretty cool. Also feels like we were just at 10 episodes. Or maybe 15, I don't know. It was like 10 or 15. We maybe even both we said something about, but 20 episodes. Almost a full year.
Yeah.
We don't have too many left.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. Time flies by. I know if you would have told me, where we'd be 20 episodes in, I would not believed you. The type of people, we've met and the different owners, CEOs, influencers, the whole nine yards. I know that's probably what I'm most thankful for. I know, Thanksgiving episode, we're going to talk about it a little bit, what are you more thankful for? But in a serious note, that's, very thankful that, we took this leap of faith starting this podcast. And I think it's really changed our lives in the first year alone. So no telling, we're very happy, looking forward to what 2024 has to bring.
That sounds weird too, man. 2024.
Yep.
It's been really fun. I'm glad that we did it. I had done it once before and didn't know if I'd ever do it again, but I'm glad that we got into it. It's like you said, meeting some of the people that we've met been very, very cool, very interesting. The folks at Monta, Joe Kirk from Grand Seiko, of course. Yeah, so 20 episodes in. What's been your favorite one so far?
Like, I'd say it's hard. I love the interview episodes. I mean, I think it's really cool, especially looking back on it. I think especially with Monta, when we did that first interview, I mean, we were just a couple months in. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. And looking back, it's looking back at it's been kind of a whirlwind, I guess you could say. And but I mean, of course, if you're just talking watch brands, Rolex is always a special one. I like doing the nice, the ones with the most history, Longines, Rolex, Hamilton, even, those very deep history watches that, has something a little bit different than the same old, hey, we just do this and we started making watches and, they look great and we got popular for one watch we made out of the 50. I like the Omegas, the history, kind of having real world history around it is it's really cool. Those are probably my favorite to dive into. A little bit more research you got to do. So maybe while doing the research, they're not my favorite, but when we finally sit down, those are the best.
Yeah. No, I mean, Rolex was really fun. The only one that we've done two parts of. So I'm sure, I guess Tudor, we ended up coming back to, but
revisit.
That was like officially our first one and the kind of like revisit with Tudor. So that was cool. I think Grand Seiko, just because, I think Grand Seiko was just one of the watches that you and I talked about the most before we did the podcast. And like, I feel like, thinking back and remembering back to when, we each were buying our first Grand Seikos and we were sort of jointly like at the same time figuring out what the hell spring drive was and all that kind of stuff. So I know that was fun for me because, like I said, I feel like that was one of, if not the brand that kind of catapulted us into even this
Yeah.
conversation of having a
Well,
podcast too.
motivated more watch, talking discussions. I feel
Yeah.
like that was definitely the watch that made us talk and, almost have to sell the point of why we bought this watch to people that maybe don't know what a
Yeah.
Grand Seiko is. I mean, a lot of people, they knew we had Tudors, Rolexes, whatever, but they didn't know what the heck a Grand Seiko was. So, they hear Seiko again, they think Seiko, like a lot of people do. So
Yeah.
having to be able to, present your case of why this watch is so great and so different, I think really kind of motivated us to do something like this, and was definitely a stepping stone to where we are today.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of Grand Seiko, I just saw another. It's like every single week now, but I just saw another release. I mean, it was literally 30 or 40 minutes ago, and I just kind of scrolling by it. Obviously, had to get into this today, but
Yeah.
so I didn't even see. But I believe GS9 US members only watch. But it's just a three-hander, no date window, no complications, no spring drive indication. I don't even know if it is a spring drive movement or not. The
Yeah.
dial is totally blank. It's kind of like an ice blue. So, I mean, it literally feels like every single week there is a new Grand Seiko being released.
Yeah. Well, they're all limited editions, like we've
So
spoke
many,
about a
yeah,
lot. That's
yeah,
their specialty.
I know,
They don't. They. I guess it's their way of trying to make exclusivity to a lot of their watches. But then also to me, sometimes it can do the opposite effect. Where hey, if I could get this watch, I'd be buying it. But since I can, I'm not buying it. So
yeah,
it has a double edged sword on there.
yeah,
So cut you both ways.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's funny you say that. Thinking about one of them, the Katana.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's right there in the name. So talking about Bell and Ross today. So if you are listening at this point and you're still thinking like, who the hell are Bell and Ross? If you've just
Mm-hmm.
never heard of them, or if you're wondering why we chose to do an episode on them in the first place, um, I mean, obviously we can't just pick the 10 most popular brands, or the podcast would have already been over with. So, I think it's a unique brand, and it's a fresh look, and it's by far the youngest brand that we've talked about. And so
Yeah.
we'll get into the details, of course, during the history portion in a little bit, but I think we picked four pretty different watches, I think, from the Bell and Ross lineup. Maybe that's maybe a misconception about Bell and Ross, if you haven't really spent time looking at them, is that they all, or that square case shape. So I think we picked some pretty unique watches to tell everybody about today. So stick around for that for sure. Not going to be four of the same and a different color. We'll go through some of their history, some of the stuff that they work on aside from the four watches that we're going to talk about. Just a quick revisit from the last episode. Still have a Grand Seiko for sale. It's the last time that I'll mention it. If anyone's wondering, I'm not going to use the podcast and just serve as a selling platform. But the Grand Seiko Bamboo, folks, is up for sale. I'm actually wearing it right now. If you can see that on
By the
camera.
time this podcast will come out, I'm sure it'll be sold, right?
Yes, hopefully. Yeah, someone offered me $4K for it, and I politely declined. And the guys just badgered me. He like keeps reaching out, and he was like, "Well, since you're looking for he sent me a link to a marketplace listing of a Omega Speedy for sale, and he's like, "Look, you could take the deal and still have some money left over."
Oh my
I'm
god.
like, "Are you trying to tell me what to sell my watch for and then what to
Tell
buy
them to buy
with the
that and then
proceeds? What are we?"
yeah. Tell them to buy that and then y'all just trade straight up.
Yeah, yeah.
Make sure it's
So
real.
that's been fun. This is only the second time that I've sold a watch to not to like someone that I know. Like I sold David a watch.
Yeah.
I've never, and then I sold a
That
Monta.
check bounced and he never brought it up again.
That's true. I forgot about that. Damn it. Yeah, the Monta was kind of, like I bought and sold at the same time.
Mhm.
And the two guys knew each other, and the Monta guys, they knew them. So the reference thing was there. So, this is really, I feel like, the first time that I'm going out, like trying to sell one to just, the masses.
Yeah.
And yeah, the conversations are already a nightmare. So, but anyway, if anyone has seen that watch, if you're interested in it by chance, if the stars align, it is for sale. The Bamboo, that is. So reach out, DM or email us, and we'll get you hooked up. Might even cut you a deal.
Mhm.
Yeah, follow us on Instagram at Strap and Link. We're on Instagram, TikTok, getting a little bit more active on TikTok these days, trying to
Oh
be
yeah.
more active on Instagram when
Yeah.
Instagram's not pulling our shit down. Um, Still don't know if it was the reference number, the at Rolex, the hashtag Rolex. I don't know what it
We've
was.
posted many times that reference number, at least in 2
Yeah, I mean,
prior posts, but
it's
whatever. It
it's so
happens.
weird. So still
Such a
figuring.
professional picture. They thought it was professional.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll
I
just
think we just got blackballed for some reason
it
for
was a
right
stock
now, but
photo.
we'll get it back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, YouTube for full length audio only episodes, occasional short clips.
Yep.
And yeah, just share the show, share the Instagram page with a friend. If watches and reels, pictures, that's more your thing, share the Instagram. We would appreciate that just to grow the audience a little bit more. And of course, if the show is your thing and the podcast is something that you've got a friend interested in, send that to them as well. And season's greetings to everyone who's here with us. Do you want to jump into history, or is there anything else you want to say on this illustrious almost Thanksgiving episode of the Strap and Link podcast?
Well, no, I mean, trying to think anything. What are you thankful for, Brett? Tell me. What is your
Ooh.
Thanksgiving November
Well,
thank?
well, I'll say this. We haven't done this in a while. We haven't recorded this early in a while. We're recording this episode a little bit in advance because I'm expecting my first kid like literally any day now.
Yeah.
So we're getting the podcast out of the way. I just put my Christmas tree up today. That's out of the way. In anticipation for, needing some extra time in the coming weeks. So at the moment, I would like to say, very thankful for my family here, getting ready to welcome a little boy,
Oh yeah.
which is very exciting. So
Very
everyone's,
nerve-wracking and
yeah,
exciting at the same time.
exactly. Yeah, everyone's excited, but everyone is doing well, healthy, on schedule, and all that good stuff. So I'm very thankful for that. Watch related, and podcast related. So very thankful for where we are today. It's been 20 really fun or 19 really fun episodes, and
Yeah.
getting ready to deliver the 20th. We've met some cool people, like we already talked about.
And the gradual growth is great here.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
obviously you guys are sharing it around, and it's getting out somehow. And
yeah,
I know TikTok, like I said, we're really growing on that platform, and so it's really nice to see the views and people DMing us and asking questions. So again, I know we've said this before. Don't be shy. Let us know if there's anything question wise you have for us, and we'd be happy to help you.
yeah. That's always another fun part too. Just meeting people online. We've had people from like halfway across the world, in the Middle East and Europe.
Hmm.
Some folks in Asia that we've interacted with once or twice. So I mean, that part is really cool too. It's just the fact that somebody so far away with such a different background and culture and all that good stuff is listening to us. That's really awesome. So I'm very thankful for the audience, for the members. Yeah.
Let's
Man.
hop into history.
Yeah, man. Let's do it. Let's get into the history of Bell and Ross. So this is the first watch brand that we've done that's going to be relatively young, and by relatively, we're talking actually quite young. So Bell and Ross was founded in 1992.
Younger than most of the people listening to this.
Honestly, yep. Almost younger than I. French brand founded by Bruno Bellamich, or Bell, and Carlos Rosillo, or Ross. These guys were university friends at the time, and so this was actually a project that was going on. One was a designer, another was an engineer. So this was sort of a university, college project between the two of them. And Bell and Ross watches were originally produced by the German watch company Sinn. That's another brand that we'll be covering later on and down the road. But the Bell and Ross by Sinn is really a big point of debate, in the watch world, and not specifically the Bell and Ross by Sinn, that at the time, and we'll get into more of this as we go on. But just the idea of some of the in-house feats by Bell and Ross. Bell and Ross, or BR, began tailoring watches to military specifications, enabling them to stand out amongst its peers for both professional and enthusiast alike. If you've ever seen a Bell and Ross watch, you know exactly what we're talking about. However, landmarks throughout the Bell& Ross history include their earlier Space One model, which became the first automatic chronometer to be worn in space and is quite literally identical to the Sinn 142. So again, a little bit of a contentious point about this brand, and we'll touch on this sort of as we go throughout the history bit.
Yeah, definitely. And then in 1996, just 4 years after they really got this thing going, they released their iconic bomb disposal type, which was produced and offered precision and two cases: one outer magnetic resilient case and a soft inner case, which, as you can probably guess, for the bomb disposal squads. In 1997, the Bell& Ross Hydro Challenger was released. It was a quartz watch geared towards professional and amateur divers, and this watch was very popular at the time, was very legible and a balanced dial. But the most iconic thing about this watch that it had a staggering 11,000 meter water resistance, which for anybody that knows watches, that's over what,
What
300 times. What would you call that? Not
what
triple.
was
It'd
the
be
James Cameron like? What's the deep sea? Is that 6,000
yeah,
meter
yeah.
or
So
oh
I'm
no, I
gonna
don't know.
look right now. I know it's deeper than the
Yeah.
Rolex. Um,
So all right, so I just googled it. It says since 2008, the Rolex Deep Sea waterproof to 3,900 meters.
okay,
And let's go for comparison. The Omega Ultra Deep
it's 6,000.
is
Yeah,
6,000 meters, and then
yeah.
the Bell and Ross,
Hydro Challenger
yeah,
is 11,000 meters. So yeah, that wins the award. If you have the applause, congratulations, Bell and Ross. This is the deepest water resistance we've covered so far in the on the podcast. But for many years, as you can probably imagine, Bell and Ross kind of they got their start with a military background, so they assisted military elite forces by creating timepieces meant to provide special functions. All of these watches are subject to rigorous performance and reliable testing from the onset. Bell and Ross operated under one simple mantra. It was said function shapes form. So today, these principles are still upheld in the facilities in Switzerland. So again, this is kind of one of those different watch brands as well. They're headquartered in France, but their manufacturing is now moved over in Switzerland with all the other big names, which is
yeah,
kind of probably more of a PR stunt than anything, but they want to be around all the other guys.
yeah. And I'll read a quote here in just one second. But I read another quote actually from one of the founders. I forget specifically which one, but he said that their headquarters is in Paris. Their watchmaking facilities are in Switzerland. They're no longer in Germany, but the relationship with Zen, he
Mhm.
sort of described it like tri-cultural, German, Swiss, and French being
Yeah.
sort of, motif for the brand. So
Yeah,
once
it's
I
really
heard that,
cool. It's really cool too with this brand being so young. Obviously, the founders are still around and very
yeah,
active and young as well. There's a few watch. I know FP Joran, their founder, I believe, still alive and still around.
oh
But there
yeah,
are very few watch brands that still have the original guys there, as you can imagine, with all these starting in the 1800s normally.
yeah,
But I was watching an interview with Ross, and he was talking about how he is much more of the business side of things, and Bell is the innovator, the designer, and he designs 90% of these watches pretty much himself. So it was fun being able to see them and talking about their strengths and how they grew this into the conglomerate that it is. What,
yeah,
30 years later?
yeah. I know I mean, again, youngest by far that we've ever. I mean, I think probably the next youngest was probably 1930s, 1940s, or
Hmm.
something like that. So for them to have watches, that are making world records and they've only been around for this long is quite
Yeah,
gnarly for
and
sure.
I mean, a lot of guys, as you can imagine, with today's technology, you can probably build a watch, stealing from other people and making a watch that has these great records, or at
Yeah.
least holds up with the rest of them. It's the marketing behind this. It's finding their niche and growing and becoming a household, maybe not a household name, but within the watchmaking world, everybody knows them.
Yeah.
So it's very impressive, not just on the functionality side, because I guess at some point you hire enough great engineers and you find out what other people are doing, you can figure that out. But it was also finding out their business side of things and their marketing side of things to become what they are today.
Yeah, and 5 years later, after the Hydro Challenger, Bell and Ross developed the Space 3, where Zen's influence is still very much present. The watch also just happened to be the first official automatic watch worn in outer space. And, only thing that I'm going to say about this, a little bit funny, a little bit odd, maybe that these stories from Bell and Ross, there's not a whole lot of context behind this watch being the first automatic worn in space, nor the 11,000-meter dive record.
Yeah, I
Just
agree with that too. Because even reading that about the first automatic, I never heard that. You always hear about Omega, and I even was fact checking this a few times, but it's
yeah,
true.
I know
They're Space
because
3.
yeah, because I would come across a different article or an interview, and I would read these things, and then there was just no context behind it. It would
Yeah,
just was like casually dropped over one or two sentences. Oh, it's a Guinness
yeah,
World Record, and then there was nothing else to be found about it. There's no mention of how of was it did it actually go down that like did anyone take it down that deep? Like is it just
yeah.
rated? There's no mention of how they got to it. So again, I didn't go scour Guinness World Record their site, but it just is a little bit weird that for a watch brand that young to have some accolades like that they're not more that they're
Yeah.
not better documented, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they're not even trying to do any of that, and it's just
Yeah.
happening. They're like, "Oh, whatever. Yeah, it happened. Great. We're gonna go back and make more watches
And
for
maybe
airplane pilots,
yeah,
for
and
fighter
maybe
pilots."
that's what's happening. Honestly,
Yeah.
maybe that's what's happening. To move us right along here, in 2002, 2002 would be the end of the Bell and Ross by Sinn association, as Bell and Ross was purchased by the fashion giant Chanel. I recently read a Hodinkee article from 2022 that detailed this quite interestingly. The Hodinkee writer asked, just quite simply, how did the Chanel relationship again? And Rosillo slash Ross said that his background
Mhm.
was in finance. He said, I understood what we needed. We started the company with $20,000. And so I understood that we needed to have the financial support. And we were lucky in the second stage of our company to find Chanel. He went on to say one of our first stores in New York at the time was Kinjo, that was located directly in front of the Chanel building. So when they eventually connected with Chanel through venture capital in 1997, they were already wearing Bell and Ross. I guess some of the people there were. So that's how that connection started. So kind of an interesting story. Not to say that they lucked into it, but it's just kind of interesting that they went that way.
Yeah, definitely. Contrary to what some thought, they maintained their identity and design language, starting with their BR-01 model in 2005, when the company began producing square watches meant to resemble aircraft instruments. So the square cased BR models are still some of the most well known models that are out there today. Probably their most well known. To me, I really like it. It has great design and influence personally. I think this is more of a sporty mesh, between we talked about the
Yeah.
Monaco being a sporty square watch. Of course, Cartier is very dressy, so this is somewhere in between. But Tag really only did one square watch when it came to, their whole line of watches. These guys do hundreds.
Most.
And yeah, most of theirs are these
Yeah.
square, fighter pilot, motorcycle driving, very sporty looking watches. To me, I think this is a lot cheaper. So I'm not comparing these, price point wise, but this is very like similar to Richard Mille. They're
Yeah.
their own kind of style. You
Their
either
own
love or you hate them.
Yeah,
And Bell
it's
and
like their
Ross is
own
the
like
same way.
case. It's like a case design.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
almost like Manta do that too. Like to even
Mhm.
throw even more mix in there. Like all the Manta, except for the new Ocean King, but all the Manta watches have effectively the same lug and the same case, both shape, dimension, and design. I feel
Yeah,
like they're all the same. They all look the
very
same.
similar, yeah.
All of the BRs, it's all in the same case.
Mhm.
Um,
Just
and
different
then
designs, and the dials are
yeah,
very different, so don't think that they're all similar looking, but you're
yeah.
exactly right on the case, they're very similar.
Yeah, it's like,
And it's
the
their niche.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, and some brands do that, like Grand Seiko do that, like, the GS44 case, that's like an homage to like an
Yeah.
older case, and there's a whole line of just watches that are just in that case shape.
Mhm.
So some brands do it, but yeah, these are a few like Richard Mille, like you said. Not even really Manta, but from a design perspective, like Richard Mille and yeah, I feel like Bell and Ross,
They're
like
just
those are
out there, yeah.
yeah, I mean, they created it for themselves, and that's where 90% of their design catalog go to are these two
Yeah.
case shapes that they created and they
Yeah.
repeat every watch with.
Yeah, I mean, these are, if you sit there and say, "Hey, I'm a special forces fighter pilot for the French Air Force," and you see them wearing this watch, be like, "Okay, that makes sense." It's a badass looking watch.
Yeah.
They're all very, sharp edges, skeleton, second and hour hands. I'm going to talk about a couple of these in a minute here. They're just very elite looking watches. They're not dressy, and they're
No.
not. I don't want
No.
to say cheap looking because that's not. It kind of downgrade some of these watches we've talked about in the past. But Hamilton is very like filled, old school kind of watch look, and this is like a modernistic Terminator going to kill you and where this watch keep going. So it's a very different. It's not meant to.
Yeah.
I'm sure they are worn around very regularly, but it's not meant to originally be worn around like that. So it's just a different style. You can see, a NASCAR driver, a F1 driver wearing one of these, when he gets out of the car.
I kind of think of Bell and Ross like they like if so G-Shock, right? G-Shock
Yeah.
is sort of worn by a lot of military folks, right? Like
yeah.
like if you're in the United States, like Marines or Army, you're not always like issued a watch. Like you're not going to
Mhm.
be issued like a field watch per se, but I believe
Yeah.
from what I understand is feel like you're required or like suggested to wear something, and you sort of have like a range of
You
things.
need something that can take beatings, and that's the
Exactly.
G-Shock. Yeah.
And I feel like the G-Shock is one of those like go-tos, right? Same thing with like
Mhm.
policemen, with firemen.
Oh,
The
yeah.
Bell and Ross watches, I feel like if G-Shock said we're going to do the same stuff that we've been doing, which is make watches that are capable of taking a beating for people in these professions, the Bell and Ross is that watch, except they took it and they made it all mechanical,
Yep.
and then they made it they took all of the fluff away from it. They stripped it down to like a core essential, you know, minimalistic watch, a
Mhm.
mechanical design, but made for those people. So yeah, it's interesting. It's like this. It's the same thing, but it's different. It serves the
Yeah.
same audience to me, but it's a different delivery of that
Yeah.
serving. And
Yeah.
obviously the price. That's a big point of contention that we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
But to just kind of like lay the stage, if anyone's just super super unfamiliar with Bell and Ross and like where they fit, that's kind of how I perceive it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this watch, as all others, is funny. They all do the same thing, just differently. Same, but different. And
Mm-hmm.
these guys break out their watches that they make into four types, like most: a pilot, a diver, an urban, which is just a city watch, just named differently, and then a vintage, which is your old school looking watches. With this in mind, their website boasts a tremendous amount of honor and respect to military units, as you would imagine, around the world, including many manufacturers that are referenced for their product on their website. So they have a list of a lot, and it's not apparent who they all are, but a majority of them are national police forces and national air forces as well.
Yeah, they're all logos.
Yeah.
So, and some have no writing on them. So that's a little bit odd too. Like, I feel like maybe to go back to your point, it's like market a little bit better. I think that would maybe like if I knew some of these people, I'd probably be impressed. But yeah, I just don't know the
I
logo.
know. I was
It's probably like
expecting to
special
know
forces for
many
these.
of them. Yeah, but
Yeah,
maybe that's.
because it's
Yeah, I mean,
like
there's.
it's like the Navy SEALs, like they have their own trident. But
Yeah.
if you or like insignia, but if you just showed that to like a British person with no
Mhm.
font, with no writing, they probably would have no idea what they're looking at. I felt like same thing there, like maybe opportunity for some better marketing.
Yeah, it's weird because they have a whole like section on their website from like references and partnerships, but they don't really go into the detail. When I saw that originally, I was like, "Oh man, well, I'm about to get some really cool, details on these partnerships and references."
No,
But they're more like, it's same thing. If you're not in the U.S., I'm sure you don't know a lot of the Lockheed Martins and all the big military
yeah,
manufacturers that are here in the U.S. And I'm sure it's the same thing. They're probably big names over there. Just
yeah,
we locally don't know exactly who they are.
yeah, true.
So yeah, kind of shifting away from history here, as brief as that was,
Yeah,
let's start talking about some of their watches. I think we've already kind of started discussing the majority of them and what they specialize in. But this watch I found right off the bat, it was really the first watch I caught my eye. And I said, well, I found my first one. It is their reference number, the BR, which of course the square like we talked about, 03-94, and nicknamed the Blacktrack. And this is probably the coolest watch out there, in my opinion, that also isn't super militaristic looking.
yeah,
This is like sleek, like riding a crotch rock, a cool motorcycle watch, which is originally really what it was meant for. So combining design and technology and performance, Bell and Ross began by joining forces with Harley Davidson in 2011 to create a unique motorcycle and a watch for that. They created a motorcycle, the Ness. I don't even know how you pronounce this, but the Nescafe Racer.
Is that Nescafe, like
Yeah,
McCafe?
I thought that originally, but I was like, I'm not going to say cafe.
Nescafe?
Yeah, the Nescafe Racer, and this watch is meant to go with it. So it is a blacked out um square watch like we've talked about with red indices, a red second hand, a two sub dials on it, and a red date in the date window. So blacked out in red. This watch is sitting at 42 millimeters. Like I said, all black. The indices coated in a super lume nova. And their second and hours and minute hands are metal skeletonized. Like I was speaking about earlier, they skeletonize a lot of their hour and second hands on the back ends, which just adds flair to the watch itself. So their hour and second hands are both skeletonized with super lume nova as well. And the strap is a black and red calfskin leather and ultra resilient black synthetic fibers on it as well, so it can take a beating and not get scratched up like a regular leather would. This is one of their self-winding BR caliber 301 movements with water resistance up to 100 meters. And power reserve, again, a little low. I know we talk about this a lot lately, the power of reserves, but the power reserve for this is 42 hours. So, I mean, it's fine. It's not in the 30s, but, you always love seeing just a little bit over 2 days if you can. But, beggars can be choosers, I guess you could say. But this watch, it's on their website right beside a guy riding a Harley Davidson, I believe it is. And so it's a very cool watch. Brett, what are your opinions on it when you see it?
I mean, it's not my style, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like we knew that coming into Bell
Oh,
and
yeah, most
Ross,
of these
like,
aren't ours, but
no,
yeah.
yeah. I did specifically choose one that I think a lot of people are gonna like, but yeah. So this one's not. It's not totally my flair, but I see like the resemblance or the sort of tie to like motorcycle,
Mm-hmm.
what it's like writing or history, like that seems very apparent to me. You know what it almost reminds me of? Have you seen the officially the movie title is Batman and Robin, but the one with George Clooney and Mr. Freeze, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yeah, like 10 years ago.
A long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's one of the worst, Batman and Robin's
Mhm.
or Batman movies, but it was, it was one of the Batmans,
Yeah.
or like the Batman that was out whenever I was, growing up and watching movies around then. So I just remember
Uh-huh.
it vividly. And the little, kind of like the henchmen, whatever, the goons, whatever, for Mr. Freeze.
Yeah.
In that movie, particularly, Gotham is a little bit dingier and dirtier than it kind of is
Mhm.
in some of the more modern ones. And there's a lot of motorcycle riders,
Yeah.
and they're all wearing like just like this, just sort of unmarked, like all black apparel, just
Yeah.
kind of meant to just look a little bit imposing.
Yeah.
And that watch feels like that fits, right?
Yeah.
Like it looks like something that you would wear on the outside of a motorcycle jacket,
Oh, I mean, it
if that
is.
makes
It is
sense. You know what
a
I'm saying?
yeah, it's a motorcycle watch. If you guys like
Yeah.
riding motorcycles, this watch you'll probably fall in love with. I
And
know many uncles and people, family members I have ride Harleys and Indian motorcycles, and I mean they'd fall in love with this watch. It's meant to be with your leather, your full leather outfit, your full face
mhm.
black. Glossy, our matte helmet, matte black helmet, and this watch on the outside of your leather jacket, like you said, you're a badass rolling up to your buddies that are
Yeah.
riding motorcycles. They're like, man, this guy's tricked out.
And
It's a very cool watch.
I think the subdials too are meant to sort of resemble like a motorcycle instrument
Hmm.
display. I think. I mean
Yeah, it looks like
that
a
just
odometer. Yeah,
yeah,
speedometer.
so it
Yeah,
looks like that would be the, like the layout and the format of like a motorcycle,
yeah.
instrument display. So yeah, I mean,
And it
for
also has
what
a
it
tactimeter on it as well, which is nice on the
yeah,
outside.
so this is, this is a full blown chronograph. If I could get that word out, full blown chrono. There's, yeah, I mean the second hand being red, and then
Brett, do you
Um,
see the minute hand again? Well, when we edit
yeah.
these clips, we're gonna start putting graphics around. I keep telling Brett we need to. That's just a little more work we had to do, but we're gonna put graphics around so you can look at this as we talk about it. But Brett, do you see the minute hand on the back end? It has something that
Mhm.
almost looks like a B.
Yeah.
So that is intentional for Bell, of course. That is their design, so that is intentional. I think is really cool. I mean, it's almost like a pitchfork, but it can be spelled
Yeah.
out as a B as well.
Yeah, no, it's definitely cool. It's again, it's not my design, but that's going to be a theme I think throughout this episode.
Oh yeah, but
For what
the
it is, though,
watch, yeah.
yeah, it's pretty
If
sick.
you're looking for the sporty, like we said, there are a lot of aircraft, a lot of racing. If you're looking for a black racing watch,
Yeah,
motorcycle riding watch, this is
and you
probably
said
going to be
it's
your
42
sleepest.
millimeter. Did it?
Yeah,
One of my watches on the website. Well, I guess it's the BR-03. They specified that it was that millimeter in that it was that millimeter wide. Did it specify is this 42 millimeter in diameter or wide? Trying to get like a gauge of like how big this watch would be.
I believe it just specified 42
Just
millimeter. I don't
42.
think it even said wide or in diameter.
Yeah.
Um,
Because I
but
feel like with that strap too, like I feel like even if the watch itself didn't wear that big, that strap being like the fact that it's so wide, I mean, it's almost as wide as the watch is.
yeah,
And it's you can tell that it's padded, so it's gonna kind of stick out a little bit,
I like the corners of the watch is
kind of beveled.
diagonal down, yeah,
Yeah,
beveled out. I think that's really cool, a nice little feature as well. So
yeah.
lastly, again, this watch is inspired by the BT-06 motorcycle designed in collaboration with the Saka. Don't know how to say that last word. Lactic. Um, echoes and technical design of a stealth aircraft. So again, like we said, to me, if I could put this watch in a form of a vehicle of some sort, I would say imagine like a Black Hawk SR-71, that matte black, sleek, have some red indices on it.
Hmm.
That would be this in watch form.
Alrighty, well, let's keep the show rolling. The next watch up, the first one I'm going to talk about is the BR V2-94 Steel Heritage. That's a mouthful, and I wish that they had a better name for it. But the V2-94, I believe, would technically be the name of this watch. So the original release date for this collection, I believe, is in 2009. Again, the Bell and Ross website is not super in depth, so a lot of this information is quite hard to find. But I believe
Mhm.
2009 for these watches. Stainless steel, 41 millimeter. Going to be 100 meters of water resistance on the Bell and Ross 301 automatic movement. This is an ETA base, something that we didn't bring up on the last watch, but um, another one of those contentious points about Bell and Ross. The cost for what you're getting. So um, yeah, so ETA base here, tweaked really minimally, I would say, by Bell and Ross from everything that I've been able to uncover. It's gonna be at 4 hertz though, 28,800 beats per hour with a power reserve of 42 hours. Unfortunately, a little bit on the lower side as well.
Yeah.
And what this watch is, because people are not going to know, I feel like a lot of people listening are not going to know. So if I had to compare this watch to another brand, the Omega Seamaster Seamaster, not the SMP 300 diver, but just the Omega Seamaster, any of or even some of the Rail Masters, some of
Mhm.
those vintage Rail Masters
Oh
with
yeah.
like the lollipop hand and the faux patina. It's going to be a very sort of similar, black on gold sort of motif, but this is actually going to be a circular case. So that 41 millimeter diameter that actually is in a circular case, and this is a chronograph as well. So
Yeah.
second chronograph of the show so far. Um, but just wanted to set the stage again for people that are listening for what kind of watch that we're talking about. So it does have like a very vintage look and feel to it. There is some
Mhm.
red writing on the dial to it, the 6 to indicate the 100-meter resistance with a 12 and a 6 Arabic numeral. So that's sort of how this watch is laid out. Bracelet, is somewhat traditional,
Yeah.
if not a little
This
bit.
is the most traditional watch, they probably have, or one of the
Yeah,
most traditional, just, like you said, round. getting away from the square look and, gilted dial, gilted hour indices with,
All these
yeah,
accents.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Because you've also got the hour and the minute hand. Also, is going to
Yep.
have that sort of like faux patina sort of coloring to it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure loomed, however, wasn't specified. So, look, let's go ahead and talk about it. Let's go ahead and get the elephant, or address rather the elephant in the room. There's no way that I would pay for this watch, as good looking as I think that it is. Totally is my
Hell
style of
to the
watch.
no, no, no. You
The
can find a better
bracelet,
watch. You can find the same type of watch with a better movement for a better price.
well, you can. I was just gonna say, I mean, it looks great. Like that's
Yeah,
why I picked it. And I
yeah,
also think that it's a little bit, probably maybe one of their more, if not the most mass appealing watch by Bell and Ross.
yeah.
So that's why I picked it. But I mean, yeah, that's the thing with Bell and Ross, is that a lot of people think that they're overpriced. That's what the question is why would I pay $4,900? I mean, a Black Bay 58 costs like $3,800. So it's
Mm-hmm.
$1,100 cheaper
Mm-hmm.
for a COSC certified movement, which I believe the BR-301 to not be. They do have a COSC movement that we'll
Oh
talk
yeah,
about in just a
yeah, they
minute,
do.
but this one is not.
Yeah.
And it's a Bell and Ross. There's not that much history behind it. So that's the whole like problem and beef with Bell and Ross. And I find it interesting that they continue to do this because they are so young. And um yeah, I don't know. There's more to this conversation on my second watch that I'm going to have with you, but
Yeah, I mean, we can kind of start talking about honestly all of them. This is the best time when we open up about most, if not all, the watches. I mean, this watch is great, like you said, it's very mass appealing in my opinion. This is my first time seeing it. Just ideas off the top of my head. Looks great. 4,900 bucks is a U.S. dollars is a interesting price for just the name. Again, always talking back to it, everybody's either about movement or everybody's about status symbol when it comes to a watch. I'm a little more statusy, brand name recognition. I know Brett cares a lot more about probably movement than even I do. As long as it's automatic, half the time I don't care, as long as it has a good enough brand name. Um, but with that being said, Bell and Ross is a great brand name if you know who they are, but they're not status symbol brand names where,
yeah.
walking down the street, you're going to be proud to wear this watch. I could find you a much better, and like you just said, Black Bay 58 or just other watch brands for $5,000 to $3,000 even that are much more recognizable, much nicer, looks about the same dang
Yeah.
watch and
Yeah.
like I said, save you a few $1,000s. Now if you're just, hey, I want a Bell and Ross, you have some personal connection to a Bell and Ross and you don't like rectangle square watches, I mean this is probably the best way to go. It looks good. I love the black and gilted on it as well, but I would
Yeah.
want to pay $2,800 for this watch, not 48 or 49, whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot to unpack with the whole thing. One of the notes that I put down, like I've come to the realization that like I don't hate these off the shelf movements the way that maybe I sounded like I did on like
Mm-hmm.
some of our first episodes, specifically when it came to Longines. We've already talked about the Spirit Zulu
And
time
Breitling,
in
yeah.
many episodes. Yeah, yeah,
The
and so, like
chronom
the
yeah, the
Chronomat.
chronomat, yeah.
Yeah, the Chronomat.
I love the look of that watch, and I don't care about the movement as much. That was when I was more like, Breitling's a great name. I love the look
Yeah.
of it. I don't give a shit about the movement. And,
Isn't isn't the Chronomat? I'm pretty sure that's the one that like has
it's
it
an
has like,
Edibase. I know that.
yeah, okay, yeah. So it's not like an in-house movement, but it costs more than some of their in-house
It's one of their
movement.
most popular watches. It looks great.
Yeah.
It's a great looking watch.
It's
The bracelet of it looks similar to a president from a
yeah,
Rolex. It looks
yeah.
very good. But
Yeah,
again,
it's
that's why it really is more of looks than because most people don't know what the heck an Etta versus a Soletta versus a
yeah.
in they don't know. Oh,
And,
it doesn't tick like a quartz. Okay, I'm happy.
yeah.
Yeah.
But and it's like, all right, here's the deal. Off the shelf movement, it's gonna be super reliable, right? Like there's
Oh
a
yeah.
reason that everyone uses them. It's gonna work, it's gonna be reliable. And depending on the brand, like depending on who is buying these watches and like such as, Monta, such as Bell and Ross, depending on who that is and Tissot and what they're doing with it, like how they're tuning it and all this kind of stuff and what their watchmakers are doing with it, it can be a very accurate movement as well. Like,
Hmm.
they can be quite accurate. But it's such a weird price for this watch,
Yeah.
but
Let's move on then, and we'll talk
okay.
about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
so let's jump over to my next watch, and we'll kind of pile on to this. It is their BR dash X5 ice blue, or just their BR-X5 a watch. They have it in a few different dial colors. Again, great looking watch. I like it. This watch to me is the sporty version of a Cartier Saint Santos.
Hmm.
Rectangle, or I'm sorry, I keep saying rectangle. Square has the bolts on the bezel of their watch, just like a Santos does. Very similar bracelet to the Santos. It honestly matches very similar, even closer to a Royal
To
Oak bracelet.
or
but it
to a 5711.
yeah,
Well, I mean,
I think it's
well, actually, kind
Royal
of
Oak more.
both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a sportier looking of 5711, which of course I equate to a Royal Oak. Anyways, it looks like their Santos is a square watch. It looks pretty to me. Very sporty. Kind of talking just specs here. 41 millimeters, a little bit smaller than the first watch I talked about, the Blacktrack. It is 12.8 millimeters thick, so a pretty thick one right there. You're still talking 100 meters water resistant. This is their BR caliber 323 automatic mechanical movement, 70 hours of power reserve. So you're really getting a jump up there. So I like that. And the most important thing, to probably what we'll talk about later when it comes to it, it is cost certified, which is a first for Bell and Ross with this watch. So it is cost certified. This watch is at $7,400 versus the Blacktrack that I spoke about was $6,900, and I believe Brett's was $4,900. So a little bit more money, but really not much more money when it comes to price difference with the Blacktrack. And a brand new Santos, you're still going to be around $7,000. So if you're wanting to compare this to a Santos, I would say even price point wise, you're going to be around the same. Obviously, Cartier, they're just well known for their jewelry, and everybody knows a Cartier probably more than Bell and Ross. Even though Bell and Ross kind of sounds like a jewelry store, if you ask me, it sounds more
It
like a
kind of
jewelry
does.
brand than a watch brand. But yeah. So, what do you think about this watch, Brett?
Yeah, I think it's funny the Cartier thing because like Cartier are not in house too, and those are kind of pricey too. So
And that's what I was thinking. I was
yeah,
I was gonna say
there's
that
more brand recognition with Cartier,
I
but
wanted
you
to.
but you might be getting a better watch. You might be
You will.
getting,
Yeah.
more accurate, more appreciation if you're into the mechanical side of things.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, but if you are into the history and the name recognition and the brand recognition, then the Santos. But it's interesting how
The
similar they
movement's
are.
better
Yeah.
of Bell and Ross. On their
Yeah.
ice blue dial, they actually have a date window at 3 o'clock. Of course, that shows the 3 dates. So the yesterday, the day,
Mm,
and tomorrow. So 25, 26, and 27th of the month. And it also has a power reserve indicator at the 9 o'clock window, which I kind of like. I always love a good power reserve indicator. So I
yeah.
like a lot of the spring drives that we go. But I was thinking the same thing. It's always been a gripe, and we talked about this at the Cartier episode. It's a gripe with me about how expensive Cartiers are just off of their rings and jewelry for
Right.
women.
Yeah.
I think you definitely get a better movement, obviously, with Bell and Ross than you would at Cartier. But then, like I always said, I'm kind of backing up what I said earlier. I'm more of a recognition guy myself anyway,
Yeah.
so why would I care? But yeah, I don't know what I would do. I'd probably still go with a Cartier if it was between the two for me. But Bell and Ross, again, this is their best movement combined with a good looking watch.
Yeah, and the bracelet, like, one of us said it looks like a Nautilus, the other said that it looks like the Royal Oak. It kind of
Mhm.
looks like both
Yeah.
because the layout of the bracelet is a Nautilus layout, meaning that
Hmm.
it's, just one center link that's
Yeah.
sort of connecting, longer full links. And then
Yeah.
in the way that it's like the AP is just the it looks almost like the way that it's shaped and sort of cut,
Yeah.
like the way
Oh
that
yeah.
it's beveled and again just cut and angled, it looks like that. So it's interesting. Like, I don't feel like it's a huge ripoff. I mean, there's honestly like there's only so many ways that you can do an integrated bracelet.
Hmm.
Like the PRX, it's like the PRX, the Nautilus, the AP, these, even the Santos, like you start
Vacherons
looking
even.
at them,
Yeah.
they all sort of, yeah, Vacheron is completely different because the way that they've obviously done that sort of that
Hmm.
kind of like spear tip shape design with the center link. So
Yeah.
they've obviously done it different, but like from where you step off of the bezel onto the bracelet. So um yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's interesting. Like, it's a cool looking watch. It's just like, God, why is it $7,500, man?
Yeah, I mean, it's the
I'd pay
I
like
mean,
I'd
I
pay
don't
like
know.
4 grand, like 5 grand for that watch. I think. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, 7,500. It's just like you can just get so much. You can get so much other shit for that. You know, you can
There's
get
just I mean, is the watch market is saturated with different watch brands, and I
Mhm.
mean, I can't sit here and knock these guys for doing what they are because I mean they're pop. It is phenomenal. We keep talking about marketing and kind of maybe downplaying them right now, but it is phenomenal what these guys have done in 30 years.
Yeah,
That you look at a new even newer watch brand like Monta or somebody, they couldn't give the right arm to be where Bell and Ross is today. And over the next 20 years or so, I would imagine. So, we're not bashing this brand. It's just a little different.
yeah,
Like we said, but again, if this is your style, this is your style, and you're going to keep buying their stuff. We are more, elegant, dressy watching or, more classic vintage looks. But I can't sit here and say if this watch, was given to me at a discounted price, especially the Blacktrack or something, I
yeah.
would say no to it. It's a great watch. They look cool, and I can appreciate what they're going for. You just really need to, again, we'll post this, but you need to go do research on your own as well if you're looking at a watch to see this, and this might be right up your alley, even though it's not ours.
That's a great segue into my second and our final watch, the BR-03. This is one of their instrument watches,
Yeah,
and a great segue because David hit the nail on the head. If this is what you're into, I think that it's fine. And we'll come back to that in just 1 second. So, this model originally released, rather, this collection or this lineup, the BR lineup. This is sort of their flagship lineup.
yeah, yeah,
This released in 2005 with the BR-01. 41 millimeter wide on this watch, stainless steel, case thickness 10.6 millimeters, so quite thin. Water resistance is going to be 100 meters, and a BR-302 caliber within, which is going to be a Salida base. So both Salida and ETA, both playing a part in some of the movements here. Also beating at 4 hertz, 28,800 beats per hour. However, a measly 38 hours on the power reserve, unfortunately. But with that downgrade comes also a cut down in the price, $4,100 for this model. Like I said, this is the flagship model of Bell and Ross. This is the watch that's designed off of the instruments, like the flight instruments within an airplane, made for pilots. It's supposed to literally emulate, like an altimeter or something like that. Any really instrument within a the
yeah,
cockpit of a plane,
yeah. It does. Yeah.
and it does. Yeah, I mean, it looks just like that. Like, we have a friend who's a pilot, and sent this to him, and he thought that it was ugly. I thought that that was odd. Thinking that people that love doing that as a hobby or as a profession would like that on their wrist.
No, yeah,
And for the design, like, this is the square watch, and all of their watches, really, we didn't really talk about this, and maybe with this exception of the Blacktrack that David talked about, but all of their watches are designed to be hyper legible, and that's, like, I feel
yeah.
like one of their design
Easy to
principles.
read. Yeah,
Exactly. And it started with these watches, and, like, this one in particular is a black dial, black case, black rubber strap, and then pure white lettering, so it's perfectly
hmm,
contrasted. Um, and a lot of their watches are like that. So
yeah,
extreme legibility. And again, to wrap back up, I think what David and I are both saying, what he just said is, like, would I pay $4,100 for this watch being the flagship? Which, again, this is what I like. I like this design. I think it's pretty damn cool.
yeah,
But I don't know if I'd pay $4,100 for it. But that's the thing, is I think that if you are a pilot, or if you're like an aviation history buff, or just an
hmm.
aviation buff, like if you're just really into planes, I think that's who
This
these
is
watches are
cool.
for, and I
Yeah,
think that's who's buying them.
yeah,
Like, I don't know that Bell and Ross are, like, eating up a huge chunk of the watch market, and I'm sure that they're not. But I do think that people that are buying them, yeah, have some appreciation somewhere,
yeah,
or they're in that field, they're in that profession. Maybe they just like vintage, I don't know, like motorsport type things, because it definitely gives off that, like, industrious vibe of, like an old school plane.
yeah.
So yeah, so that's my 2 cents on it. It's a cool watch. the brand as a whole for me is like it is overpriced. But again, if I were someone else in another life and appreciated,
So is Richard Mille. They're overpriced
yeah,
too, but so
and maybe the people that can afford those, I'm sure it's like 50-50 because Richard Mille, and we'll do this episode later, like some of the most insane watchmaking in the world.
mhm.
Some of the stuff that they've done is unbelievable, and I'm sure 50% of the people that buy their stuff are buying for that reason. 50%
Yeah,
are buying because of the name and the status that comes with
that's
it.
the majority, yeah.
And yeah, and I think a Bell and Ross buyer 4100 is no problem. If you're a pilot, pilots make pretty good money. If you're like in the
Mhm.
military, and you get a bonus or some kind of check or something, like I don't know, someone gives it to you as a gift, whatever.
Yeah,
I
this
think this is a
yeah.
cool watch for those people, ex
Oh,
Navy
yeah.
SEALs and shit.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
this is definitely a pilot's watch. You see all of their pictures online are obviously by either aircraft pilots, fighter pilots, or just airplane pilots. And like you said, very legible. I understand the design of this, and honestly, I like it. Like you said, it's one of the. It looks just like a gauge on an airplane.
hmm,
So it's and that's what their motto even says on here. I was reading. It says from the cockpit to the wrist. So it's like
yeah,
they took a gauge from their cockpit and put it on a watch.
and it's like
And
militaristic too,
yeah,
almost.
rugged, and like I said, I love the leather band or the rubber band on it. I think they also have a Velcro strap you can put on it as well option. So on some of their pictures, they have a Velcro. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at the website, but I mean, it's a cool looking watch, and I think it is, like you said, a very simplistic version of. You would never know what that watch cost,
Right.
but also that's probably what a lot of especially fighter pilots in the military and all. That's what you would probably want, more of a low key watch than
Yeah.
walking around there with a Sky Dweller on,
Right.
unless you're a Delta pilot. Now Delta pilot or something
Yeah.
like that is different, but
Right, yeah. And that's, I mean, like, even further to home to the point, like, I don't think this is the watch for, like, a Delta pilot. They probably
Mhm.
are wearing, a GMT Master 2, a Sky Dweller,
Yeah,
maybe some Omega or something like that, some kind of a GMT maybe. Or maybe just, like an IWC, something that's a little bit more like mainstream, and a little
hmm
bit more streamlined. Whereas this is like, I feel like this is where, like military pilots go to. This is where,
yeah,
like active duty and even, like I said, like Navy SEALs, like, not a pilot, but whatever. Pilot's watch is a three-hander watch, right? Like, so
oh
is
yeah,
my Grand Seiko. So, I see someone like that wearing it and appreciating it. I was thinking like if I had this watch, I would wear that shit like to the gym,
hmm
like that would be like my workout watch,
yeah, yeah,
get it banged up on like on a barbell or something, and not really care about it, like
yeah.
just rugged, you know, I don't know, wearing it like while I'm cutting grass and shit, like, and that's kind of what I said at the top of the episode is like it's a G-Shock, but it's mechanical and it's up market,
It's a higher
I
class
guess.
G-Shock, yeah. It's
Yeah.
G if you imagine G-Shocks
Mm.
are for all the, the enlisted, the infantry, there you go, that's the word I'm looking for, infantrymen, and then your Bell& and Ross is gonna be for your officers. It's a little bit
Ah,
more higher quality,
if it was a
but,
$1,500 watch, like I would consider, like if someone were
yeah.
like, "Hey, like, would you?" I guess let me rephrase that. If someone was like, "Hey, would you buy one of these for $1,500?" I would consider it.
If I was a guy trying to learn,
Like,
learning private pilot's license and just flew even for fun or, an
yeah,
instructor, that would be the Bell& and Ross, that'd be a great
yeah,
watch to have.
yeah,
For me, obviously, I don't think I would ever own one unless it
yeah,
was like a Blacktrack or something, motorcycle racing, just to, that I mean, again, that Blacktrack watch we talked about, that's like your Steve McQueen looking, just badass,
yeah.
cool watch, Evil Knievel, that's that type of watch.
And that's a watch, like, I would wear that watch to, it's like a concert, Like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
a fun, you go out to, like, I don't know, Chris Stapleton, show or
yeah,
something like that, and you can be a little bit like, what are, like,
yeah.
like, country I don't know. What would you feel like country's themed
Imagine
today?
watching. I'm trying to think like what's a movie like. Have you ever seen the movie Act of Valor? That old Navy SEAL movie. Yeah, there's a lot of
I
Navy
haven't.
SEAL movies or even shows like SEAL Team is
Yeah.
a show on Paramount. When they're always at home doing their low key stuff, they're always wearing some old rugged watch. This Bell and Ross watch would be the watch you would imagine them wearing.
Yeah.
And but like I said, very cool, different, newer, kind of that new money look versus the old money. And
Yeah.
yeah, I like it. I like the brand. I'm very intrigued in the brand, and I'll definitely be keeping an eye on them and what they new release comes out yearly with those guys, and
Yeah.
it's very cool just to be able to see the founders and talk about their envisions and their designs and where they go for.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a handful of people that are into this type of watch. So if there's anyone out there, yeah, definitely look out for some authorized dealers. I feel like I kind of see Bell and Ross like somewhat frequently.
Yeah.
Obviously you need to probably be in like a bigger store, in a bigger town maybe.
Hmm.
But I know I've seen a lot like in Teddy's videos when he goes watch shopping with like Kevin O'Leary. I see Bell and Ross is always in that Booker store up in New
Yeah.
York. So I don't know how big of a store you need to be, but I've definitely seen on at least one or two occasions personally. So
Yeah.
shouldn't be too far, but yeah, and let us know what you guys thought. If there's any feedback or questions, anything like that, would love to get your guys' thoughts on it too. Like is it overpriced like you guys think? Is it for some different folks? Yeah. Anything else you got
I think that's
for
it.
this evening?
I think we've hit all the points we wrote down here that we were going to say.
We're gonna get out of here, I guess. We're gonna go eat some. Well, I guess it's not quite Thanksgiving yet. We're almost to Thanksgiving. I'm gonna go make an eggnog, put some bourbon in it.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. We'll catch you in December. Got some fun stuff coming up in December. Stay tuned for that. And hope you guys stay safe. Have a great Thanksgiving. Catch you next time.
Bye.